is Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. And you got a face of puzzlement. It's a Friday. This is Morning Kicker. And we're here to dot the map and cover some stories in the American soccer landscape. How you feeling?
I'm okay. We had some technical stuff happening before we went live, and I want to make sure that the ultras and everybody in the chat can hear us. All the other people watching can hear us, because there was a question of whether our hold music that we all danced to before the show was being heard. So we'll get
Should we just start over? We're doing it live. Should we just start all over from the beginning?
I mean, I think in the case, if Ryan Smeltzer, who you hung out with this weekend, or last night, that would be a Wednesday or a Thursday, whatever. If he can't hear you, then what do we? There's no audio apparently. So, all right, okay. Well, now Mountain to see Dwayne says he logged out and logged back in, and is it working? All right, now okay, now we're good. Now we're ready to go. I didn't want us to be silent.
All right, so I'll start over again. So see. Another American soccer team to close its doors. World Cup broadcaster Tyler Terens joins the show, and we dot the map of the new wave of channel members, and couldn't be happier for everyone to be here on a Friday. It's been a bit of a slog of a week, busy day, but it's a victory day for me. My Oakland County FC, 2 wins out of 2 attempts this week. It was a lot of work. Paid off, and it was great to see one of our original MK Ultras, Ryan Smeltzer, last night. Great hang after the game, too. We're going to show some pictures of him having a good time at the end of the show when we dot the map as well.
All right, let's do that. I'm excited to dot the map, too. We haven't done that with me in a little while, so I'm ready. I want to shout out all of the Ultras, the people here. Shout out to Jeff, who was here very early. Mr. Bob, who's gifted, I think, 6 memberships. Shout out to everybody who scooped up a Mr. Bob. Mr. Bob memberships are the special ones. If you should get your own membership, but if you happen to be around Mr. Bob gifts a membership and you get a Mr. Bob membership, that's like an extra level of ultra, I don't even know what the word is. Like it's
so how about anyone that's in the chat right now that entered membership via a Mr. Bob gift, put their hand up, put a little message in the chat, and a thank you to Mr. Bob to introducing you to being an MK Ultra.
It's like Mr. Bob has his own little subset of ultras, like his own little ultra army. The Mr. Bob army is like a thing. I like that a lot. All right, Billy Bob's here. I mentioned Dwayne. Let's see. We got Homeless Shoe is in the building. Shrimper Steve is my guy in the UK. Callan Reese is here as well. Okay, he's asking questions of Mr. Bob. Jeff, I already mentioned Jeff. Who else is here? Ryan, as I mentioned, is already here. He talked about bleeding purple with Oakland County, and we'll talk about that later in the show. Kate is here. Kate, your shirt is on its way. I don't have the tracking on it, but if you get it, let me know. Chris is here. Seneca Rocker is here. By the Big Lake is here. Who else? Am I missing anybody? Bill Barrett is here as well. He confirmed the audio works. Felix is here. It's a great way to spell Felix. I like that a lot. Riverside Grove, Bloody Bob, all the Bobs in the building. Love all the Bob Battalion is Bloody Bob says, Rob. I like
the Bob Battalion. I like that a lot. That's a whole lot of fun. And weird connection, the MK Ultra membership group, connecting the dots all the way across the globe. The guy that we had on from Fort Wayne really back at the beginning, Gabe, I can't remember his name, but the director of Fort Wayne ended up becoming the South End director with Shrimper Steve. And so there's a MK in real life football connection going from one Ultras club to the other on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. So that's a fun little network there. And I keep on hearing stories and in the Morning Kicker on Discord server about Ultras meeting up at games across the country. And, Tom Franklin, the Soccer Zombie, is a big part of that, but Bill, and then now Ryan, and it's great to see all you guys connecting out there in the real world, dotting the map at the various locations at American soccer games across the United States. It's really great to see. Tomorrow, the last day, the deadline to get yourself one of these beauties. Morning Kick Around Ultra Kit, the second run of kits is tomorrow. So get your order in the next 24 hours or so to get your kit. And if you order just after the original deadline, this means that yours will be getting produced and sent out very soon. Thank you for your patience if you ordered shortly after that first deadline. And this one's coming your way amongst the many things that Ryan was rocking last night. This was at the OCFC game last night.
Your guy Jason has learned a couple lessons about shipping the shirts from the first run, so there won't be as many mistakes this time. I can promise you. Some things have been rectified, and we should be ready to go. So buy your shirt.
Yeah, fully duct tape those envelopes, Jason. I mean, you probably went cheapo with the manila envelope. You got to add that wrap. You got to triple wrap it with some duct tape.
Apparently I do. Apparently I do. Yes, and do what Mr. Bob says. Please hit the thumbs up. If you're not an ultra, you're not ready to make that leap, fine. That we still appreciate you watching the show, being part of the American soccer journey, but do what Mr. Bob says and hit the thumbs up, hit the like button, help get us to that point where more people see us sort of organically on the YouTube platform. As Mr. Bob said earlier, we'd love to get to 10,000 subscribers before the end of the World Cup. I think is a reasonable target for that. I think we can do it. Let's go.
Yeah, 10K by World Cup. Is that what we're talking about?
By the end of the World Cup is what I said. So we still have a month and change before we get there. So
that's a reasonable.
It's a reasonable target. I mean, you want me to go for 50K? Let's go to 50K by the end of the World Cup, Rob.
All right, that's reasonable. 10K. I mean, that's only like a 700 or so. We're past the 9.3 marker. But yeah, we're doing this organically. We don't have some sort of crazy, ad buy, fund or anything like that. So we're doing it organically. So your clicks and shares and all that stuff go a whole long way to help this show grow into what we're trying for it to be. And it's wonderful as it is now. And we thank you for all the support and support in any which way you are able to in a responsible manner. All right. Should we get to the show?
Let's go. Let's dive in.
All right. Let's get into it here on Friday's edition, Morning Kick Around. Opening the show with probably less than positive news. We like to dot the map here on this show, but one of the dots is unfortunately going to get removed from the map going into the USL Super League, now on the verge of the playoffs in that league. The Spokane Zephyr announced that they are closing operations at the end of the year. They did 2 years in the Women's Super League on the USL side. And now they're done.
Yeah, this is always a sad thing, right? When an American soccer club ceases to be, we're so used to it, right? We're so kind of numb to this stuff. But I want to make sure we mark this because while I don't love being mean about it, right? We talked about the problem of if you start something, you can never guarantee its success. Like starting an American soccer club is like opening a restaurant, Rob. Like the attrition rate is extremely high. The margins are very difficult. There might not be any margins.
Yeah, it might be red margins.
There might be red margins. You might be losing money year in and year out for a while until things really get going, and maybe they won't even get going, and then okay. So here we have a team dying. We could easily go to, well, why just start a team in Spokane, Washington? In the Gainbridge USL Super League if you didn't think you could make it work. Like we could get to the place of blaming the people. Now, obviously, you still have a men's team there, right? And I don't think I haven't heard anything. I have no reason to just jump to a conclusion that Velocity is in any trouble because I imagine that's a different economic proposition, but it's not good. Right, it's definitely a black mark on the ownership of Spokane Velocity and Spokane Zephyr that the Zephyr are shutting down. And I know you see the statement here from the USL. Where's the USL in all of this? Right, as stewards, as organizers of the league, as the ones who make the big claims that they tend to make. Because nobody comes into American soccer saying, we're going to try some stuff, and it might not work, but it's better to try and fail than to never try at all. No one says that, Rob. What do they say? We're going to be the biggest league. We're going to be a first division league, USL Super League. It's a first division league in women's soccer. That's what this is. And you're telling me you can't keep it going. Now, it is worth pointing out that they were isolated out there in Spokane, right?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Travel is a big cost in American soccer. And Maybe that's ultimately what did them in on some level. But again, you knew that going in, right? You knew that going in that this was going to be a problem. I know you were desperately need AC Boise to pop up with a women's team so that we have somebody to play that doesn't require us to fly vast distances. But it's still, it is still extremely distressing that this is happening again.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. These are our least favorite kind of stories. Apparently, the writing was on the wall to a degree. There was some balloon payments missed last year. It's 3 years after a 10-year deal with the stadium was signed between the company that owns both the men's and the women's team. But apparently, the funding didn't come in the same way that they thought, and they had to close this down. Hopefully, that's not an ominous thing for the men's team as well, but
the other part of this, that the thing that makes you worried is that this is not a club that had a difficult stadium situation, right? Their stadium situation was one of the better stadium situations in the Super League and in sort of a general sense, American soccer. And they still couldn't hack it. They still couldn't make it work. There's a statement from the USLPA, right? They will always have something to say when something like this happens. And although the
it's lost
USLPA
jobs. It's lost jobs.
doesn't cover the Super League on the women's side, they note this. The decision to cease operating after the 2025-26 season is another reminder of the instability that continues to plague professional soccer in this country, and players should not be expected to accept that instability as normal. The statement rather talks about the players, staff, supporters that have invested into building professional women's soccer in Spokane, the commitment, etc. Unfortunately, this is not a new problem in American professional soccer. For years, players across the USL have experienced what happens when leagues and clubs fail to prioritize the structure, planning, and protections necessary to sustain professional soccer. So we had the South Georgia shut down. We've got Zephyr shutting down. These are black marks against the USL amidst the building process of filling out the men's pyramid, of building the Super League into something that they claim will be a valid first division in women's soccer. Promises are broken, the USLPA says. Consequences fall hardest on the players, and there, of course, is the people who have lost because of this. Is there an easy answer to any of this, Rob? Probably not.
No, there certainly isn't. And as we kind of review this and business people getting into the business of soccer, American soccer, which is obviously a turbulent place. But I go back to our conversation. I really had good conversation with the new owner of Sporting Cascades, and he mentioned, ownership in a local team is part philanthropy, and how many people in this space are kind of viewing it in that way. I think it might be. I think with the attrition, it might be that you got to go into it knowing you're going to lose a whole lot of money and be okay with that over an extended period of time. And I don't know if the folks that are getting into it are prepared to do that.
Well, okay. So Riverside Grove says, and I threw it up already, I'll do it again. Players must accept that this instability is normal because we all have to accept it. This instability is normal because it's just the current reality, right? This is a real practical view of a situation that is, until things are built out where this doesn't happen, we have to accept that it sometimes will happen. Is that an attitude you agree with, Rob? Because again, and to Riverside Grove's point, right, to what I already said, which is it's better to have tried and failed than to never have tried at all. Is it better to have started a club, have it last 2 years, and shut it down than to not even give it a shot for women's soccer in Spokane?
Yeah, I think that's a fair take from Riverside Grove. And I think he's almost pointing out that it's not only the players that lose out on all those things listed about the instability.
We don't believe the ownership started a club in Spokane and was like, yeah, this might last 2 years, but whatever. We'll just, whatever. It's a shot at it. They wanted it to last. Surely they did. But again, we've seen this so often that it becomes this thing of, and it's individual groups, different people doing it. But what do they say about repeating the same thing over and over again? Like, what is the saying about doing the same thing over and over again?
Definition of insanity.
And expecting different results. It's the definition of insanity. Now, are there enough good results that you say, okay, it just is what it is? Now, here is a part of this too. Ronald's saying, if only there was a system which allowed the club to quote unquote retreat to safer waters. This is obviously a reference to self-relegation, I guess, right? Something like that, or being relegated because you're bad when you're in financial distress. Now, this is the thing. USL Super League is a first division league, but there is not really a second division, and certainly not under the USL umbrella, that is professional. So this would be going from professional to amateur.
That's
You would
what I
still
think WPSL is attempting.
then you would still be, you would still be dispersing players, right? The players would still be, because if the players are professional, they want to be professional women's soccer players, not sticking around in Spokane to be amateur players in an amateur league because you've self-relegated. Now, what that does do, though, is keep the name alive, keep the club alive in the sense that fans still have something to go watch, right? And this is not something that we have normalized in American soccer. The idea that if things are not working at the level you're playing financially, that there's a place to go, or that you can go down a level to maybe cut down on your costs to keep the thing alive, because that's certainly better than blowing the whole thing up, right? So could San Diego Loyal have decided to play at a
Took the
lower division
example. Took the
instead
example from
of shutting up shop? Here, there is I'm sure there are others, but the Richmond Kickers decided to go from USL Championship, the second division level, to a third division level because of costs. And that's a club with a longer history than most American clubs. They go back to the early 90s. And there's very strong local roots in that club. And they have an academy that people identify with and things like that. So, or a youth club that people identify with. So what they decided to do was find a way to stay alive. And why aren't we doing that? Why is that not the answer here? USL says that the Zephyr have decided to not play, or that they're not going to participate. Why do they have to go away completely? Maybe they won't. Maybe there's still an opportunity for them to play amateur. I don't know.
Well, it might just be lip service, but the statement released on the news of the closure, they end it by saying, "We remain committed to the game in the community. We will continue exploring ways to ensure women's soccer remains an active and visible part of the inland Northwest." But that doesn't say, "Hey, we're going to drop down to the summer league team," or anything like that. I mean, that's not very specific in any way. That could even just mean like, "Hey, we're going to run some camps that might be branded," or something like that. I mean, that could mean anything or absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, why couldn't they maybe drop down to the summer amateur league? I mean, Chicago House is another example that did actually, they tried to be a professional team in NISA. That didn't work out, obviously, and they're playing in the Midwest Premier League at the summer amateur level, and perhaps that's what's going to play out here. They didn't explicitly say it, but unfortunate for Spokane Zephyr supporters and everyone associated with the club. Tip of the hat to another club wiped off the map for now, at least.
I know we need to move on. It's another USL Super League story, which is interesting. But I do want to recognize there's a comment in the chat, which isn't going to go on screen. You got to be an ultra to get your comments on screen. So sign up if you want to be a member and get your comments on the show. There's a question, or there's a comment about Stefan Szymanski and soccer economics. That's a book, by the way, for anybody wondering what that reference is. It's a book called Soccer Economics. I think there's probably some updated versions, but that book goes back almost 20 years. And basically it argues that you need pro-rel to make any of this work. Right? There's a lot of that in there, right? So, and I've talked, just for the reference of the comment, I've talked to Stefan Szymanski a number of times over my career. It's been a while, but I've been doing this a long time, so I've had plenty of conversations with Stefan, and then maybe we'll bring him on the show at some point. Again, I think, the idea that pro-rel fixes everything is something I struggle with, but there may be an argument here that what American soccer is missing is the ground up growth. And I know you could argue that this is kind of ground up with what USL is doing with some of its leagues, but if you don't have like an amateur team that moves into a professional ranks, that goes up and then can go back down if necessary, then it gets very much like this is just fly-by-night businesses. This is just a restaurant. And if it fails, it fails, and then you blow it up, and now you have to start over.
Yeah, unfortunate news there, but we must move on. Let's take a break and come back with our next story here on Morning Kicker on. Stay with us. soccer under construction here on Morning Kickround. To the USL Super League we go. Just under a year ago in Tampa Bay, Florida, there was an announcement about a development in Ybor Harbor, one of the coolest places in the Tampa Bay area. And there was a plan for a whole big redevelopment, including a soccer stadium. But there was a release now about some more news about that redevelopment in that area. But there was one thing conspicuously missing from that announcement.
Yeah, so here's the story from that'ssotampa.com, which now I know is a
That's
website.
so Tampa.
That'ssotampa.com. Tampa City planners approved $35 million redevelopment for Ybor Harbor waterfront. Now, after hearing some of the numbers around some of the development plans that incorporate soccer in America, because that's our milieu here, Robert, $35 million is like nothing. $35 million bucks? What are you talking about?
Pocket. You can find that on that's in your couch, right?
Yeah, exactly. We count these redevelopment deals in hundreds of millions of dollars. Anyway, this is the story from Samuel Spencer. Tampa City planners approved that $35 million. And you can see a drawing, a rendering via hand drawn, or maybe this is computer drawn to look like this, of a harbor, right? And there's some buildings around a harbor, some boat slips, and I see some sort of jutting out a little island situation there. I don't know if that's a pool or whatever. I can't really zoom in. Of course, it's a drawing. What I don't see in this picture, Rob, is a soccer stadium. Now, we're not Tampa experts. Neither you and I live in Tampa, Florida, or in the Tampa Bay area. So, whether or not this is exactly what this is I'm allowing for that possibility. But as you said, a year ago, and I think that says 6/13/25, 6/12/25 up there in the highlighted portion. Tampa Bay Sun FC unveils vision for new waterfront stadium at Ybor Harbor. That's the same name as the place we just talked about, with the new update about the $35 million redevelopment. And again, as you said, I scanned the story. I read it in depth, the one from That's So Tampa, and it does not mention a soccer stadium. Now, could there be some other way that the soccer stadium gets jammed into this? Perhaps.
It's a pretty built up area. I mean, that's a historic Cuban neighborhood. There's a lot of flavor there. I really, really enjoyed my time there. When I was there, it was one of those days where you have a later day flight. So you're like, you have enough time to kill to go do something. And it ended up being the most fun place we visited in the trip. And didn't want to go to the airport.
Isn't the story that Ybor City, by the way, has a reputation for being a party destination? But my understanding, I don't know if I've ever partied in Ybor City. If I did, I don't remember it, which probably
I was there early in the day, and it looked like a place that could be really fun in the evening.
Okay. My understanding is Ybor may be the place where the Cuban sandwich was invented. The Cubano.
Yeah, I was there. I went to the restaurant where they claim the invention.
They claim they invented the Cubano. Okay, well, good for them. It's a fine sandwich. I might have to pick one up later today. Might be my favorite sandwich. Yeah, maybe not. Okay.
Close.
Anyway, this stadium is so cool. And obviously, if it does get built, represents such a massive step for women's soccer in this country. And, I was just writing about this because I put out my newsletter this week. It's my news roundup, Good Soccer, Bad Soccer, on my newsletter, which is Jason Davis Soccer Eagle. Go find that on Ghost. I was writing about our trip to Pawtucket, Rhode Island, right? And our visit to Centerville Bank Stadium, and talking about how I wrote it nearly makes me tear up, being a guy who's covered American soccer for 20 years, to see a stadium like that built for a club in a second division or in a lower division, not in Major League Soccer, not in one of the major metropolitan areas of the country, not in, a top 25, what do they call it? MSA or whatever that's called. MTA, I don't know what they're called.
Secondary, tertiary markets.
Yeah, it's incredible that somebody was willing to put the money in to build Centerville Bank Stadium. It's not a big place, right? It's 10,000 people, but they want to build it. They want to add to it. And even if it's only 10,000 people, it is amazing that that's a thing that exists in American soccer.
Yeah.
Imagine if somebody actually got this across the line and built a Tampa Bay Sun USL Super League. It's not a second division. There's still a first division. And Tampa is a pretty big market, right? It's a market MLS has looked at before. Obviously, the Tampa Bay Rowdies are in town. They're in St. Petersburg, and they would love to be part of the top division of American soccer. But this would still represent a major move towards soccer is a legitimate part of our sports scene in a way that is indicative of growth. I'm a little worried. Should I be worried? I don't see it. And now we've shut down the Zephyr, or shut down Spokane Zephyr. So I don't know.
I'm having trouble remembering if there's any expansion teams coming into the Gainsbridge
There are teams
Super League next year, but this brings them from 9 to 8 teams with the closure of Zephyr, and so
which, by the way, so hold on, you're talking about this. There are teams slated to arrive not next year, the year after, and 8 is the minimum you need to be a first division outdoor women's soccer league in America. So they are down to the minimum they need to meet the requirement. Now, and I also remember, and look, we checked our PLS recently because they were updated with those percentages for ownership. I don't know if they've updated the number of clubs you need in a first division or what. Remember, it's like you could start with 8, but by year 3 or 4, you need to have 12, and you need to be moving on from there. And you could say that those requirements are arbitrary and unnecessary and ridiculous, but they're still the requirements. So, based on what I'm seeing, AC Boise, who I mentioned already, the Cosmos are planning a club. Ozark United, who also is trying to get their men's club off the ground and hasn't yet managed that. There's also listed some slightly less, I think, firm plans. I don't know. I'm seeing Buffalo, Chattanooga, Indy 11, Oakland, Raleigh Madison, which is a team I think they play in the they play in the W League right now. They want to move to the Super League. And then Palm Beach is mentioned here as well, and Iowa, which is Des Moines, which we think is making moves towards their men's pro team getting off the ground.
So the USL Super League making some moves to challenge NWSL as that rival first division league and looking for that entry point. And it seems like a lot of teams are accessing this league, but a little bit of a wobble here with Spokane Zephyr closing down, and then seemingly the plan to go to a bigger building. And the building that Tampa Bay Sun are in now looks quite nice. Obviously, it's of a modest size, but it looks a nice location on the water there itself. But we'll see what this all plays out. I mean, the soccer war, the battle for territories and cities and markets, it's on both sides. It's in the men's game and the women's game just alike. And falling out of, I have a feeling that there probably won't be an onrush from the NWSL to move into Spokane. But it's interesting that
I don't think so. I mean, look, there's a team obviously in Seattle in the NWSL, and the Sounders have actually done partnerships with Velocity to play games out in Spokane because of venue issues with the World Cup coming in Seattle. I think that was for the CONCACAF Champions League, or Champions Cup rather. So I don't know exactly what that looks like in the future. I do want to acknowledge the chat. There's some conversation going on about the divisions and pro rel and things, which is all pretty normal for American soccer fans. Tim McDuff, our guy in Pawtucket, says the Boston Legacy are also renting out Centerville Bank Stadium. First of 7 games this year is being played tonight. So that's a Boston NWSL team that's building their stadium or renovating their stadium, White Stadium in Boston, and playing sometimes in Foxborough, also playing in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And just because it's part and parcel of this, I saw that the Rhode Island football team, the University of Rhode Island football team, is going to be playing at Centerville Bank Stadium as well. And although we both are natural grass guys, who's not, I understand why they put in that artificial surface at Centerville Bank Stadium, right?
And reference back that conversation that's posted on the channel with Paul Byrne, the stadium manager there. And that was one of the questions talking about the surface. And he referenced, to make that stadium work, they had to have more than soccer games, and having the turf how it is, allows giant football players to not absolutely tear it up, concerts, this, that, and all those other events to fill those nights. But we'll see how this timeline plays out with USL Super League and if Tampa Bay Sun get a new stadium. But hang with us. We got a great guest. We're going to talk World Cup commentary here on Morning Kick Around. Morning Kick-Around's World Cup coverage is brought to you by Oakland County Football Club, celebrating 10 years on the field, bleeding purple in Southeast Michigan 2026. Visit the website for tickets and visit Oakland County FC on Instagram to follow along the historic 10th season. Now, very excited to welcome in today's guest, announced to Fox's broadcast crew, Mr. Tyler Terens. Welcome aboard to Morning Kick-Around, sir.
Glad to be here. Glad to see Jason not between the hours of 4 to 7 Eastern or 5 to 8 Eastern on WTF. And Rob, great to meet you for the first time. Been listening to the show for the past half hour, talking all things USL and what they're trying to do in all these markets and divisions, men's and women's. So glad to be here for the first time.
Tyler's an expert on all of things America. You've called every league, right? You've called every league in America for the most part.
Division 3 men's soccer and women's soccer, Division 1 men's and women's soccer, League 1, USL Championship, CONCACAF League, for people who remember that was like Europa League for CONCACAF, if you can imagine such a thing, where like teams from Belize and Trinidad and Tobago are like kind of the favorites entering into those tournaments within CONCACAF. So yes, I've caught a lot of soccer, but I'm very excited for this summer.
Yeah, on your Instagram page, when the announcement came that you were on the Fox's broadcast team for the World Cup, you kind of detailed your story of being a D3 player. And then in 2018, you were commentating in the USL, at least the league that you referenced in that video. And then you set your goal to be in the team for 2026, and you did so. But kind of what was that leap from like getting started and then kind of starting to move up the ladder of commentary gigs?
Yeah, so a lot of people, particularly the diehards, I feel like at this point in time within the soccer broadcasting community, people have heard of this company, Vista World Link, which is down in South Florida, which is the house for NWSL broadcasts and even was MLS broadcast last year, offsite, and then also USL. So I've worked my way through there. I called like 500 games in 3 years, never actually going to a game, calling 5 or 6 games in a week, sometimes 3 games in a day. And I just got more and more reps. And then I ran into Tony Miola, who I met for the first time when he moved down from Jersey to Florida. And then he and I started to call some games together when he was down there. And then something happened with the Chicago Fire play-by-play guy that they were hiring, along with Tony to be the new voices on WGN when Joe Mansueto took over the team. And 2 weeks before the MLS season in 2020 started, Tony called me and was like, hey, the deal with the play-by-play guy that they were going to bring in fell through. Like, I think that this is going to be your big break. Chicago's going to call you as soon as we hang up the phone. So lo and behold, I end up working with Tony Miola for 3 years at WGN and Chicago Fire, which was like some of the best years of my life. Like, I love working. I love Tony in general. He's like a second father to me, but like working with him, the crew that we had was amazing. Living in Chicago. And then it was MLS season pass once the rights shifted. And then after that, beginning of 2025, I started my journey with Fox, did some CONCACAF Champions Cup, did Gold Cup, and sort of like went through their whole, trial with me. And apparently it didn't suck. And they asked me to do the World Cup. And now we've gotten to this point, which is kind of crazy considering this started doing games for Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey for $30 a pop. So it's been
I like listening to slightly humble Tyler Terens. I don't usually talk to that Tyler Terens. I talk to a different Tyler Terens who's maybe a little more on the radio, which of course, look, we don't have to talk about the art of any of this. I just, it's incredible. No, it's great. And getting to know you as I have working with you on the radio has been great, Tyler, and definitely deserved this summer with the World Cup. So, give us your thoughts here on the preparation. How do you prepare for the World Cup? You know what games you're going to be calling, your partner. How do you do that?
So, I do it just like any other game, which has felt strange to me at times, like that I'm going to prepare the same way for a midweek Houston Dynamo St. Louis City game that I'm going to prepare for a Sweden Tunisia game and the opening game in Monterrey on June 14th. Like, that feels bizarre, but like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's gotten me to this point, this preparation. So I'm really just starting from scratch in terms of like my actual boards, all the individual players, making sure that I have everything that I need on these guys. Should there be a tight shot on them? Should they score a big goal? Should they get hurt? Whatever it might be. And so that's, where they're originally from. A lot of these guys are obviously from their original countries. Some are born elsewhere and then got a passport through one way or the other. It's caps. It's, where their stops have been in the club. It's, are they a starter? Are they a backup? Is this, their first World Cup? Is this their third? Whatever.
Can I ask you a very pedantic guy who talks for a living about soccer question? Where do you come down on pronunciation, Tyler? How do you handle name pronunciation?
Don't do this. I know where you're going with this.
No, I'm not going anywhere. I've asked everybody this question because I struggle with this issue, right? I don't sometimes like you sound pretentious if you're trying to do it in the language of the person, but that's how they would pronounce their name. Now, if I since I speak Spanish, it's hard for me not to give some Spanish flavor to a Spanish name. But if I'm saying a Czech player's name, I'm not trying very hard to say it the correct way.
I have a really difficult time with this because I feel like there are some languages where I feel like I can give a little like Spanish. I'm serviceable enough to the point where I can say Gutierrez and I don't have to say Gutierrez. I don't have to say Gutierrez. Like I feel like I can do that. But then Sweden is arguably one of the most difficult languages to actually pronounce the name. Like the best man at my wedding is Swedish. And I've had many conversations with him about that. He's like, don't even bother because it's not, you're going to sound like an idiot and it's going to mess you up in the middle of a call. You're not going to get it right. So
that's what it is.
Just do the anglicized version, which by the way, a lot of these Swedish guys are perfectly okay with because they know how out there their language is comparatively to the rest of society. Right. So like if I can give it the zhuzh that it requires while also remaining within the scope of language within like quick play-by-play and sort of like stream of conscious play-by-play, then I will do it. If Portuguese, Brazilian, I think is another one where it's like Fernandez, and like if a player is called Rafael, right, in the anglicized version, but like they want to be called Rafa Navajo from the Colorado Rapids, I'll do that because it's Rafa Navajo. Like if he wants to be called that, but most of these guys, we're going to get audio files and they'll say their last name for us, and which is to me how they want it to be pronounced, and I will try to get as close as humanly possible to that. It's going to sound different for every country and every language, and I think that's just sort of what it is at this point in time. But as long as I'm doing it from the horse's mouth, I think that was
a very selfish question. I know you were talking about your prep.
You know what? And like, I really didn't want to talk about that because one of the last interviews that I did, they're like, they compared it directly to Derek Ray because he's the king of pronunciation. So then I basically had to take a stance. Am I on Derek's side or am I not on Derek's side? And Derek is a wonderful guy. I spent a lot of time with him out in LA recently. And like, I just don't, I can appreciate how much care and how much attention he gives to it. And that's like become his thing. I can confidently say it is not my thing, but I will do my best to do all of these names justice within reason.
No, I think you do a good job. I think you do a good job. You don't want to come across like somebody who's never heard the name before or said or never heard, doesn't appreciate that there's a difference, right? I think there's a line. It's really tough because you don't want to sound pretentious, but you also don't want to sound uninformed. Yes. Right? You don't want to sound like an idiot.
So many baseball announcers are still saying Acuna as if there's not an Enya over. Like I'm just like, what? Well, that's
but that's broad. Okay, what's interesting about that, and again, we're getting very granular here, is that they know they're broadcasting almost not universally. There are certainly a lot of Latinos who love baseball, but they're mostly broadcasting to English speakers who don't know the difference and don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like their audience,
then just say it the right way. That's my like. If they can't tell the difference, then what's the difference? Like
but what I mean is no one's going to call them on not saying Acuna.
Sure.
Whereas as a soccer announcer, this soccer fans in particular, and I love them, but they are extremely quick to tell you when you did something wrong. Right now, that maybe that means you can never get it right, and you might as well just pick a lane and go with it. But I just think that's an interesting part of this. I know I stopped you there. The partnership you mentioned, like Tony Meola was formative in your career. You formed a partnership with him. He's an excellent color commentator.
One of the best,
probably one of the best that we've ever had. You got Mo Adu, right? That's your partner for the World Cup. So how do you work out a rapport? What's the move to make sure you and Mo have the rhythm right?
You know what's funny is that we've done like I think 25 games together at this point in time, and we sat down for dinner after we did our last game before the World Cup in LA. We were doing a game from the studio. I think it was a Germany and Ghana friendly. We had wrapped up. We go out to dinner together. Or no, it was, CONCACAF Champions Cup. And this was like a month and a half ago. And we sit down and like, we'd had a drink and I was just like, it's like, hey, by the way, I was like, are you cool with like how we call a game together? Like we've done 25 at this point in time. And we had never had a conversation about like how this is supposed to sound.
Right.
And he looked at me, he was like, He's like, bro, isn't it a little bit late for that? And I was like, well, yeah, but like, I at least heading into the World Cup would like to pretend we had a conversation about this. And he goes, no, you're right. Like, we probably should have. But I think that speaks to the fact that like Mo's a pro's pro. I've done enough games to the point where like I also know that like he's just he's a traditional American broadcaster. And like what I mean by that is Warren Barton, somebody who I've also worked with a lot at Fox. He's more of a English sit down at a pub, you're having a conversation with him type guy, rather than like some of the technical aspects of the American network soccer broadcasting way are not something that Warren necessarily grew up with. So it's different. And what I mean by that is that like Mo and I just sort of, without saying anything to each other, we're able to fit into a groove. And we also get along off air, which I think is super important, right, for any sort of rapport on air.
It's hard not to get along with Mo Adu off air. I think
so
that's
much fun, and he's a huge Arsenal supporter, and I've just been giving him the most crap, and I'm not looking forward to spending a summer with the reigning champion, and especially if they were to win Champions League.
You could tell Mo that I'm upset with him because last time he was on the radio, he was with Winalda in Vegas, and we were talking about the semifinal, and I said I'm an Atleti fan, and he said why, and I was like, wait, hold on.
Why are you an Arsenal fan? Yeah. Don't be gatekeeping my supportership. No, Mo's awesome, and we have a lot of fun together, both on and off the air. And like the rapport thing, sometimes it just clicks. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, and sometimes you just don't have it at all. And I think fortunately for Mo and I, and this is obviously something that Fox took into consideration when making partnerships, is that like I think it happened pretty quickly. And it's allowed us to be able to just fall into a rhythm. By the way, that conversation that we had talking about sort of like what our calls sound together lasted all of about a minute and a half. And then we just started talking about something else.
Well, that means you obviously have a good rapport going if it goes without saying. And definitely that comes across when partnerships don't really get along. That kind of comes through between the lines. And you referenced the partnership and then also calling games in studio. So for the World Cup, just a couple weeks away now, how many games are you guys covering? And are you guys going to be on location from the studio? How's that, the nuts and bolts all going to work there?
So Mo and I, at the bare minimum, will be doing 7 games, possibility for more, 6 group stage, and definitely around a 32 game. And then every single commentator is on site for every single game. All 109 games, Fox is going to be sending their commentators on site. So I like, and I have a lot of friends asking me that same question because they know how many games I've done off the monitor, and particularly like with Fox and doing a lot of these, European qualifiers and stuff like that. Like, we're doing it from LA. But I'm like so excited to get down to Mexico, to go to Canada, to go to stadiums in the US. Like it's, really like a kid in a candy shop type stuff to be able to like be at all of these games.
Yeah, traveling all across North America will definitely test any sort of bond or friendship, right? And I do want to ask, like, so from the commentator's perspective, like, what do you get, and what have you seen being in the stadium on location rather than being off the monitor?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I always tell people this. I think that I would put the percentage of like being able to have the best broadcast possible. You can get between like 85 to 90% offsite, in my opinion. If you're comfortable doing it and you know moments to be patient, waiting for camera angles, waiting to like make sure that something has happened, right? Because there's sometimes that a call's made and they immediately go, if you're doing a game off the monitor, if there's a call made and they go to a tight shot and you can't see the referee's signal or the AR's flag, you sometimes don't know exactly what the call is. Is it a handball? Is it a foul? Is it offside? Being patient, waiting to see the next angle, waiting to see, which way the players are moving or what. Like you can have a really, really good broadcast offsite. Being on site, I think, obviously, number one, energy and feeling the atmosphere, right? I think that riding that wave of momentum with the crowd, knowing when to sort of like up the cadence a little bit and up the energy and riding those moments of like when to hold your breath, like speaking as a fan and then relaying that as a commentator. I think that that's obviously super important. Being able to pick up on little nuances that are going down in the technical areas, seeing substitutes who are getting ready, maybe seeing some arguments that are happening between a central midfielder and a center back. And again, those are things that you can reference when you're on site, but also know that like you have to reference the monitor. Is the viewer at home seeing that? And if they're not, you have to make it clear that they're not seeing it and that you're noticing that on the other side. And again, those are tiny little things that I think that can increase the level of the broadcast. But I think that you're still really capable of being able to have a really great broadcast, even if you're not on site, but you get that extra 10 to 15% when you're at the stadium.
That makes sense to me. I mean, I'm not in your world, I've maybe called 2 or 3 games and they were just larks more than like, oh, I'm making this my thing. So I wasn't thinking about the art of it. I was just nervous as hell about screwing up a player's name or something.
What games were you calling?
I got flown out to San Antonio when they were doing we want to go to MLS, and they were like rolling through a bunch of different tandems. It was me and Kanji. I worked with Steve Cangelosi.
You and Kanji called a game together?
We called a game together.
That is American soccer heritage at its finest. You and Kanji on the call.
I
dig it up. MK Ultras, dig up that footage.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm sure I was terrible, right? It's not like anybody called me after that and was like, "Hey, you were." And I was in the co-commentator chair. I wasn't doing play-by-play because
I'm not used to hearing humble Jason. I'm used to seeing a much more on Jason on the radio.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's well done. No, that thing about like obviously as a viewer, I want my commentators on site. Like for me, that feels like necessary. And we even had Lute say, World Cup games better be on site. Like that's a respect of the game kind of feel for a lot of people. You think though that unless you are, look, I think I can tell sometimes, but maybe there's other times when I can't tell.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I do think some of that is down to audio, like the quality of it, what room these people might be sitting in. Even sometimes you'll hear guys, and look, nobody's under any illusion that guys are being sent all over North America to call CONCACAF Champions League Cup games or something, right? But it is kind of funny when the audio goes out from the world feed, from the feed, and the commentators are like, "We're having technical issues." It's funny.
Yes, but again, like this also comes with a level of access to these games that we really haven't had before, right? Like before, I don't know, 2016, 2017, and that was my first year at Vista. How many CONCACAF Champions Cup games were being aired where fans could be able to enjoy them, whether it be on linear TV or even on a streaming service, right? And with that, there need to be cost-cutting avenues that are taken, and not having broadcasters flying all over, not only North America, but CONCACAF region in general. Like, are you going to send somebody down to El Salvador to do a game? Like,
that's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean.
While Toronto FC is on the road. So, like, soccer broadcasting has come a really, really long way. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to sort of like witness it firsthand while I'm also like climbing the ladder to a certain extent. And it's been really cool to see. And I've called more games off of a monitor, way more games off of a monitor than I have on site. I feel sometimes more comfortable doing a game off monitor than on site. Like I had
that's
reps. I had to learn how to do it, like being in the stadium when I finally got to Chicago.
I had to learn how to work with a partner on the radio because I was solo for so long that when it was like, I have to work with somebody else. I have to leave space for them to talk. No,
and who's better to do that with than Eric Winalda, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. I asked for questions in the chat, so if you have a couple minutes, maybe we'll throw a couple at you. Jack says, your favorite announcer, voice or style? Who's your guy? It doesn't have to be soccer, obviously, but maybe if you have them.
Good question. I think it has to be Peter Drury. Now, I'm not, nobody is as poetic as Peter Drury, but the way in which he builds to the moment, like take away his goal calls and his full-time whistle, dramatic poetry, which is phenomenal, right? And like makes us feel things in our gizzards. But the way that he moves through the game, the way that he can sometimes just, shift it down a couple of gears, call out the names, and just be a commentator, but then also build up to those big moments and calling out the first and last name while they have an opportunity to have a strike from 18 yards out. Like Peter, for me, is just like, he just has such a good sense of the moments to shift through within a soccer game and how to control his voice to move along with it and make sure that those two things are hand in hand. So Peter Drury definitely is the guy.
Yeah, he's great to listen to, one of the classic voices. There was a question from an Ultra earlier up in the conversation asking more of a technical question. Does Fox direct the world feed if it's based here, or who is directing the world feed?
No, so directing the world feed for any World Cup is always a company called HBS, Host Broadcasting Systems. So, it's the same thing, right? Like the Super Bowl, if it's being broadcast, let's say on CBS, all those cameras belong to CBS. And then if you want to be Portugal and you want to have Portuguese commentators on the Super Bowl, you are taking CBS's feed, you're taking the director and the producer from CBS, and then you're just laying Portuguese commentary and Portuguese ads over it through the graphics and everything like that. Same thing for the World Cup. Host broadcasting systems is hired by FIFA, and they're in control of all the cameras. That all those cameras belong to HBS and to FIFA, and then Fox is simply just taking that feed. So we're not in control of anything. So like if there's a quick cut or a bad shot of something or whatever, like I see a lot of people sometimes who will like tweet at Fox being like, this camera angle sucks or whatever. Like, no, like Fox is just simply, like the rest of the world, taking the feed from HBS and then just putting Fox commentators and graphics and everything like that. And that's the same for CONCACAF Champions Cup. That's the same for, that's how soccer works, because it's such a global game, is that you can only really have one set of cameras there who belong to the host system that's responsible for cutting the show.
So a couple other questions, kind of what we've already talked about. One about your inspirations growing up. So you said Peter Drury. I'm assuming you've been listening to Peter Drury since you cared about certainly English football.
Yeah, but and Jason, I think that you and I have talked about this before, and I feel like most people don't know this about me though, is that like I didn't want to do this growing up as a kid. Like I wasn't a 7-year-old who was talking into a tape recorder, like laying my voice over a Jets or a Mets or a Knicks broadcast, which are my teams. Go Knicks and 4. I just stumbled into this when I was 19 or 20 years old. So like paying attention to soccer commentary, unless you're a diehard or you work in the industry, or like you're somebody who just like lives and breathes and eats the game, which I was like as a college soccer player, but I wasn't paying attention to commentary as much. But like my inspirations growing up, like when I really started to take a look at it, when I still was quote unquote living in Jersey, going home for the summers in college, it was Mike Breen for the Knicks and on ESPN. It was, Ian Eagle, who was local with the Nets. Bob Wischusen, on the radio for the Jets, and Joe Buck and Jim Nantz. Like those were more so the guys who I grew up with, like as an American sports fan. But then it became Arlo White, then it became Peter Drury,
it's interesting you mentioned Drury. Obviously, respect and obviously your influences, like a lot of us, like me for sure, were I listened and watched American sports, and the thing, there's always this question for me about how Americans respond to soccer broadcasters, because so many Americans are hardwired to think an English accent is the only justifiable way to broadcast a soccer game. I mean, I think American soccer teams, when MLS teams were in charge of their own broadcast, how many teams went and found themselves an Englishman? And I'm not hating on Arlo White, and I'm not hating on the guy, who's the guy in Nashville whose name I can't remember. Okay, Tony Husband. I like these guys. I talked to them. I know they came here, with their eyes open and willing and wanting to work in American soccer, but their hires speak to that idea that, hey, it's got to be an English accent. What do you make of that as an American who's trying to do your own thing, be respectful to the game, and maybe people just say, I hate Tyler Terens, but that's maybe not necessarily because of how you call a game, but because they're expecting to hear Peter Drury.
And that's totally fair. And you know what, like, as somebody who was a sports fan before somebody who worked in the industry, I understand how important it is to like the commentator or like the person who's calling your team's games. And that's why we're so fond of, as American sports fans, particularly in sports like basketball and baseball and hockey, where you fall in love with your local commentator because they elicit something emotionally inside of you and you fall in love with that. With that in mind, I get why some people are just like, yeah, the only trustworthy narrator for a soccer game is an English voice. Fair enough. One of the lofty goals that I set for myself when I was 22, in addition to calling the World Cup in 2026, was like, I want to be such a good blend of an American sports commentator and have enough European vernacular and European vibe within a game that somebody's going to trust me one day to call the Premier League for their respective network, whoever that might be. Like, that's one of the goals that I set for myself, because that means that I'll have found the perfect blend for somebody to be able to trust Tyler, to be able to find that middle ground, which I think is what we're trying to do, right? Like, I also believe that, like, Peter Drury and Clyde Tilsley and all these guys, like, who like they're just becoming the soundtrack to big time soccer games. And it's not to say that John Strong isn't. It's not to say that Steve Cangelosi isn't. It's not to say that Jake Ziven isn't. But for so long, particularly at the European level, those guys are. So if that's the case, then, and I'm not trying to sound like any of them, but there's a cadence from a British standpoint comparatively to an American that I think that you can find some sort of really good blend. And it's not even something I'm trying to do consciously. It's
Right.
just something that like I think is where we can find the middle ground to be able to like maybe push American soccer commentating to
I like that.
to the next
I like
level.
that. I've spent a lot of my career thinking about stuff about thinking about how Americans don't trust Americans when it comes to soccer,
Which is crazy. Yeah.
which informs everything about, you know, where we are and where we want to go and all these things. And it's always, we're always looking to somebody else. It's coaching. Oh, we got to look to the Dutch or the Belgians or the whoever. Right. And that's true here. And I just want people to acknowledge, right, that you're coded to want an English voice, which does restrict our ability to create our own wholly American culture, right? Like as long as we're leaning into America, you know, there's a certain Englishman who's gobbling up all this money for his podcast network and such, and it frustrates me because I feel like too many people who are in charge default to this, and I give Fox credit for this because Fox has never been like this. That too many of these decision makers, Americans, but executives who maybe don't really know soccer all that well, their first instinct is, oh, get an Englishman. Get an Englishman to call the game. That's what we need to do. And that bothers me because, again, it means we're slowing down the growth of our own soccer culture. I know that's just me shaking my fist at the cloud, Tyler. I know.
No, it's difficult to disagree with it though, right? Because especially as somebody who's in the industry and in the business and trying to push this along, you know, sometimes that is the case and sometimes that is the default. But you know what? It's like, our industry, Jason, as you know, is so subjective. And like, if there's one person at a network or one person at a radio station who either likes or doesn't like you or thinks that it should be an English voice or thinks that it should be an American voice, then that's what it's going to be. It's really just like one or two people's preference that is going to drive how the game is going to be viewed and listened and digested, which is insane because
it's insane.
One or two people making the decision for how 15 million people per game are going to experience the World Cup. One or two people is like an exaggeration, right? Like it's a collection, it's a committee, it's like it's a brain trust. But the point is that, like Jason, if I was somebody listening in the car to WTF, I could, given the way that my brain is wired, and be like, I just can't stand the way that Jason Davis's voice sounds, or I cannot.
I get a lot of that.
Stand the way that Eric Winalda sounds when he speaks, even if he's the most credible person. Like one of my biggest influences, actually, when I first started, was my sensory and perception psychology professor at Hobart College. Diehard baseball fan, big like commentator guy. He was a big John Sterling fan. You know, he was a Yankee fan growing up, and what he and I always talked about when it came to commentary is that like how you process sound is such like a, you know, it's like music, right? It's like music can take you back to a certain place and can elicit such emotion. And that's a really crazy thing to think about, that like Jason Davis's voice is somebody who, you know, from 10 to 1 on for United States of Soccer for so many years, and then from 4 to 7 on, you know, for WTF. That's how they spend their day. That's like how they shift from work mode to you know, insert Jimmy Johnson mode, whatever, Joe Smith. And as a commentator, like, it's such a crazy thing to wrap your head around. It's just like, I could think that I called the best game possible, but somebody in Charlotte who's listening to a Charlotte FC game can despise the way that my voice sounds simply just because that's how their brain is wired. Fair enough. And to go back to the original point, it's like if an executive thinks that that's how soccer is supposed to sound, that's how they think it's supposed to sound, and that's who they're simply going to hire. It's just sort of like, it's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
Great conversation here with Tyler Terens. Tyler, thank you so much for joining and spending so much time with us here on Morning Kicker and answering some of the technical questions and some of the, you know, emotional and, you know, career advancement sort of questions in your line of work, going from 2018 all the way till now, hitting that goal. Audience, you can follow Tyler's showing some behind the scenes, I believe, of his journey through the 2026 World Cup. And of course, going to catch you on Fox. So congratulations on getting the gig. And I look forward to following along through this journey and following the games.
I just followed you on Instagram. I wasn't before, so my apologies for that.
Look at
my
this
mistake.
show, bridging the gap here.
How long have I known you, Jason?
I wasn't really active on Instagram until very recently. I don't even have my own picture.
Something? I used to come on your USSS show, okay, and talk about USL Championship for like 20, 25 minutes, if you remember. All right.
I remember,
the fact you just follow me on Instagram now is
nah,
Jason only reciprocates a follow if they've made it or if like they're a network broadcaster, somebody that's worth their time.
No, that's actually not it at all.
That status, Robert.
I just suck at Instagram, Tyler. That's what that is. I just suck at Instagram, and it's man. I'm so excited for the summer for you. Obviously, I like Mo. I'm glad that you two together, two people I like working together. Excited to listen to the game. I mean, enjoy Mexico. I hope you do like a food journey while you're down there too.
All sorts of journeys. Yeah, no, I'm all over. But thank you guys for having me on. I love it. You guys are doing the Lord's work, and I love two American guys covering American soccer and talking about what you guys talk about. So keep doing awesome stuff. And thanks so much for everything, Jason. I learned a lot from you and listening to you. And I like to think that
we'll have a whole second bonus conversation on whether Tyler likes working with me.
Yes, fair enough. Fine. I'll stop being nice to you. Goodbye, guys.
No,
that's Tyler Terens. Catch him on Fox. He's got 7 plus maybe more games coming for him during the broadcasting of World Cup 2026.
I want to point out real quick. Sorry, Rob. I know I'm stepping on you again, and I know I dominated that conversation. I like Tyler so much. I really like working with him on the radio. He's not my regular partner. He's a fill-in guy. So who knows if I'd like him if I had to work with him every single day. I don't know if that would be the same, but I'm a big fan of Tyler. He built his career, right? As he described, like he is an example. He is, he's a role model of a I don't know if he would claim that, but he's a role model of a type for an American who wants to be in soccer broadcasting. And that's really cool.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And remind you guys that World Cup coverage here on Morning Kickaround is brought to you by Oakland County Football Club, celebrating 10 years of summer soccer and bleeding purple in Southeast Michigan in 2026. Tickets available and are on sale now at oaklandcountyfc.com. There's a special charity match. The USL2 team is taking on the TST team on Sunday. Charity match on Sunday. So get your tickets if you're in the area, or tune into the club's Instagram with my team of interns is putting out some excellent work out there. So check it out. And let's stick with us. What's up?
You have a team of interns. That's so cool. Rob,
OCFC stream team. And then there's a whole bunch of operational interns too, making it that they are. We should actually pour one out to all the interns, to all the summer league teams doing the work, making it happen. Because it's usually like 3 guys that make the club. And then what actually makes it happen is a wonderful flotilla of interns willing to put in the work to make us all look good. But stick around and catch our breath, come back, dot the map, hang out, wrap up our week here of Morning Kick Around. Welcome back here, Morning Kick Around, end of the day here on a Friday after a great week on the show. We've had some great guests. Really enjoyed that conversation with Tyler Terens. Really enjoyed our conversation midweek from the new owner of Sporting Cascades. And if you guys haven't seen that, that was enlightening just for the progress and great to see life back in that expansion effort. But it was a great conversation. We learned a little bit about private equity and how that whole system works and how that's connecting to the current expansion of American soccer. So I'd recommend you do that. And we also had a great guest. We had Brooks Lambier on Monday talking about the possible overhaul of the college soccer system. So we're hitting a lot of notes across the American soccer landscape. But now here at the end of the week, it's time to dot the map. We've got a whole new wave of channel members. It's just a couple bucks a week. You get priority commenting during live shows such as this. You get access to the Discord server, and a thread in the Discord server is placed to dot your map. Where are you watching the show from? Where are you from? What teams do you support? And we've got a lot of dots now, and it's time to get to the Discord and add some new dots. Going to scroll way back. I believe our first new dot to add is Jason in Boise, Idaho. Let's see if we've dotted Jason in Boise yet, or if that was where we left off, because it's been a couple weeks
Well,
we did that.
so we got Alcabus or yeah, Alcabus. Is that what we're going with? I got Alcabus in Boise or in Nampa, I guess, which is Boise adjacent. We do have a dot in Boise. That's for our guy Roger, who's in the River Guard. So you're telling me I need to add another dot in Boise, Idaho? Is what you're saying.
Jason M. in Boise, Idaho, who is a supporter of course, AC Boise and the Portland Timbers.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to do, just because I have an issue with dots. I'm going to put him right here on the stadium site. Expo, Idaho is the stadium site for Boise. So, Jason, give me the teams again.
He is a supporter of Boise and Portland Timbers.
Okay, Portland Timbers. All right, perfect. A lot of green in that dude's life. Tons of green. Gotta love some green. So
Living the
there
green
you go.
in the Northwest.
Now I've dotted Jason. So that means we got 3 dots in Boise. Shout out to Boise. Very excited for what they're building there. What else? What else we got here as we dot the map on the Friday show?
We are going to the complete opposite end of the country, to Medfield, Massachusetts. A dot for Tyler, who is a supporter of Rhode Island FC and Boston Legacy, who's going to be playing at Centerville Bank Stadium this very weekend. So it's Tyler H. in Medfield, Massachusetts. And one of the things I enjoyed about my first ever trip to New England is the regional pride and the pride of home. And Massachusetts is literally a stone's throw away from Rhode Island, but there was a hard line drawn there. And the Rhode Islanders and Massachusetts folks, at least with the people that we met, were driving a hard line between the two.
Medfield's a little bit closer, like kind of halfway to Boston, it looks like, from Pawtucket and from Rhode Island FC. But yeah, I think you ventured into the southern Massachusetts area at one point without me when I was otherwise occupied. So yeah, Tyler's getting a shout from our guy Tim McDuff, who is one of our Pawtucket friends, one of our Rhode Island friends. So there's a shout for Tyler. Yeah, Rob went to New England, learned about people who say, "Tell me more about that."
Tell me more about that. It's like, are you mad at us or are you welcoming us? I'm not quite sure, but it turned out okay. And that's good. I was glad it went the positive direction. Another dot in somewhat of the same area. We got RS Caramello in Taunton, Massachusetts. Taunton.
Taunton's down there in that southern Massachusetts area, which Tim says is basically Rhode Island light. I don't know if they're into that. Well, who is this? What's the name again?
RS Caramello.
Spell Caramello for me, Rob.
Caram ELO.
ELO. Well, okay. And clubs for RS Caramello.
And just the singular, a one club man or woman, Rhode Island FC.
Okay, I was gonna say I'm gonna be upset if it's not Rhode Island FC for some reason. Like, you're down there, you're just a skip a hop and a jump away from Pawtucket. You got to be supporting your local. All right, what else we got? We
also have, not too far away from there, Jerry with a J in West Greenwich, Rhode Island. Greenwich?
Probably Greenwich, Rob. Probably Greenwich. Sorry, who was that again? Jerry with a J.
Jerry with a J.
Jerry. We'll have a look at Jerry up there in Mass. Okay, Rhode Island, rather, in West Greenwich, Rhode Island.
Another RIFC supporter.
Rhode Island FC. I mean, Rhode Island FC might be, and we talked about maybe doing this. We need to, and you're allowed to have as many clubs as you want on your dot. It is your dot. You own it. You've basically bought like a piece of morning kick around, and that's your little your bit of real estate. But we need to count how many people have various clubs on their dot so we can see who's the leader in the clubhouse, like who's got the most representation, who's stepping up to represent these clubs across the country. Because I would be curious to know if we have more Rhode Island FC fans than we have, I don't know, Sacramento Republic fans, or where else are we? Lots of Detroit City FC fans, obviously. So, yeah, let's go.
Another dot to add to the map. And actually, if there's anyone that scooped up those Mr. Bob gifts from the beginning of the show, you can add it right here in the chat if you want to get in here immediately, if you haven't quite got into the Morning Kick Around Discord server just yet. And yeah, I was joking with the Greenwich Greenwich thing, guys. I mean, I do know, like,
How dare
I'm
you
getting
question-
corrected on it. I know I'm having fun with it. I am not actually this incredibly bad at pronouncing things. It just became a thing. All right. It's Greenwich, of course. All right. So get
Eric,
yours in there if
I like
you're
it.
in the
I like
chat
it. There's
now
a
and
bit.
you gobbled up the
That's
memberships.
That's show lore. Rob is doing show lore with the bit, guys. Come on, guys.
All right, new dot for Tom THOM, and he's in Manchester, New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. All right, let's go. Oops, I messed up that. Let me try that again. I put Manchester. Let's go. Put it Manchester, not England. That would be the wrong one. New Hampshire. Why is it?
Not Manchester, Michigan either.
Why isn't it letting me put? All right, there we go. Not man. There's a Manchester, Michigan. Had no idea. I know, man. I know
there's probably. I bet you could pop up a dozen Manchesters across the United States. There's
Tom.
a Chelsea in Michigan. There's a myriad of English town names in Michigan. Birmingham, right down the street from me too. All right, Tom.
They say Birmingham.
Yeah, Birmingham for sure.
Do they say the Alabama city is Birmingham?
No, they just say Birmingham. Birmingham.
Okay.
Birmingham. Now I'm questioning it. I said it too many. I said the word too many times. I think people said those a-holes up in Birmingham.
Okay, all right. All right. Tell me again, what club Tom supports, please?
He is a supporter of Borussia Dortmund.
Borussia Dortmund. All right, that's good. All right, I like that.
And he says placeholder NH Pro Team TBD.
That's okay. We wish cast. That's absolutely fine. We will wish cast.
TBDFC. Actually, put TBDFC in there.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, he wants to be a TBD. Okay. So, well, I got to put New Hampshire TBDFC. Like I got to put the NH on there, and then it's TBDFC. Probably it just will be New Hampshire FC because that's what we do now. That's what we do. All right. Anything else, Rob? Anybody else?
So if there's no new members putting their location in the chat right now, that is our dots completed, but there is a few requests to add teams. Do we want to delve into the adjusting of supported teams here today?
Yeah, that's work we have to do. We have to update people's dots correctly, and they like to have us do them when on air here. So we got Aaron. I know Aaron said he wants to update his clubs, right? Do I have that?
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Aaron definitely wants to. And I don't know if we put it on screen, but he took an awesome picture of him in front of a redwood tree wearing his morning kick around gear.
Oh, that's incredible. We should put that on screen. Why is that in here? All right, anyway, tell me what Aaron wants.
Aaron wants Sac Republic on here. His SF City FC.
Okay.
How do you put that in? SF City FC? Hey. And then Aston Villa. And he says, yes, I understand it's timely to add that one.
I mean, yay, celebrate. All right.
And then we stay in the southwest of the country. Jamal from the Red Crowns. He wants his updated.
So that's not staying anywhere near Northern California, Rob.
It's in the southwest. We were up in New England in the northeast.
No, look, I'm going to show you something. This is the northeast. This is not the southwest. That's where Aaron is. That's not the southwest.
It's more southwest than me, I guess. I have a very selfish outlook at the map.
I guess you could say that he's in the southwest, but really, if you look at it, that's dead center. It's just about as far south as you can go. So
that's true.
It's actually
fair enough. We're learning our
deepest
geography here on the
Jamal
show.
from the Red Crowns, who I saw put in the Discord that he was watching a Wrexham podcast or something, and they were wearing a Red Crown shirt on the Wrexham podcast. I think that's what he said. That's pretty.
You're getting out there.
Right.
Well, when you have nice branding, it goes around the world apparently. And he wants his changed from RGC to RGV. Apparently,
I put RGC. That's a
typo
on my apologies, Jamal. That's a terrible mistake. Of course, I know it's RGV. It's Rio Grande Valley. It's not Rio Grande Central. It's Rio Grande Valley. All right, what else?
And then John Stark in the chat saying he wants we have a new dot to add. Luis Blanco Austin. I'm assuming he's in Austin because he likes Austin and Man City, and that's good. We need more dots in Texas because
we do need
feel like there is a shortage. So
Yeah. We went a long time without Dot in Texas. So, okay, you said Austin FC, and he said who? What was the other one?
Man City.
Man City. Okay, Man City. All right. So we got Luis in Man City, in Austin with those two clubs. All right. You said John Stark. I was pulling up his Dot. Let me search up our guy John Stark. You said he wants to change. I see he's in the chat. Revs, Arsenal, RIFC, and P Hop. Well, do I know
Portland
what P Hop
Hearts
is?
of Pine.
Yeah, Portland Hudson Point, of course. Gosh, Jason, come on, you dummy. All right, so New England Revolution. What was the sign that they were flying at the Rhode Island FC game?
It was
Revolutions die, defiance is forever.
Defiance is forever. That's what I'm saying. That's that. The regional pride, and I've never been anywhere where like the Revolutionary War is like at the forefront of memory to the degree that I was there. And like I was really happy to see like history is around, like there's modern life and historical things happening in amongst themselves. Here in Michigan, almost any historical site has just been like completely demolished. And our history doesn't go quite as far back, but it goes a few hundred years.
Not defiance is forever. Defiance lives on. Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. I'm going to get to Christian here in a second. I will point out that I live in an area where history is not alive, but there's a lot of it's Civil War history, and I'm in Virginia, so it can get a little awkward sometimes. It's not always the kind of history. They don't recognize it the way that you think that they should recognize it sometimes. It's only in the last couple of years that all of this the streets named for Robert E. Lee have been changed. That only just happened around here. So even though I'm in Northern Virginia, which is not the deepest southernest part of Virginia, let's go. Okay, well, I'm sorry, that was a distraction. Okay, I got Christian. Christian is here. He has a Dot. You have. Please add Oakland Roots and Club America to my Dot. All right, let me go over here. Oh, are you in Salt Lake, Christian? Is that where you are? I want to make sure I have the right Dot. That says Christopher. That's not right. Where is Christian?
I'm seeing a funny comment from Eric Anderson.
Okay, down here, San Jose. My bad. I got you.
I like this comment. There's actually, this is not associated with this Dot, but there's actually a UPSL team named TBDFC in Madison, Wisconsin, which is pretty funny.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. I don't have accent marks, so Club America is going to look like that for you, Christian.
Club America.
That's right, Club America in Birmingham. We root for Club America in Birmingham.
We sure do. Oh boy! And then I think we've waited long enough. If there's any more Dots, please remind us. I'm not necessarily seeing any more, but a great connection made last night. One of our original MK Ultras came up from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Ryan Smeltzer. It was a pleasure to meet him. He came out. He did the whole match day experience. He went out to the pre-match bar. He came out and was with the Elmwood Elite in the supporters group. And then he got to meet the mascot, second-year pro mascot, Okie Dokie. And then, boom, he's got a lot on. He's got a Fort Wayne hat on. He's got the morning kick-around kit on. He's got an Oakland County FC scarf on. And he's popping the purple smoke at the end of the game.
That's a lot. There's a lot going on, but I respect it. Good stuff, Ryan. I'm glad you got to hang out with Rob and take in the experience with Oakland County FC. I know Rob desperately cares about Oakland County, so I'm glad our ultras are connecting with you on that. That's very cool.
Yeah, and he even got to participate. That first picture with the mascot was actually right after he participated in the halftime where there's like some targets to shoot at, and he was probably the oldest participant. It was mostly like 8-year-olds shooting at it. But someone, maybe one of our other MK Ultras, signed him up for the contest. And like a great sport, he participated. But it was great. The first ever Fort Wayne game was up against Oakland County FC. And it's awesome to see the progress that they've done. Obviously made a huge leap to the professional world and building a stadium. So it was really great to pick his brain and spend some time. I got to spend time with him post game for the after party, and it was great. Win for Oakland County FC and got to meet one of the longest tenured MK Ultras. So a great night last night, and it's great to see. He was talking about meeting up with other Ultras at Fort Wayne games, and the network that we have here, this group, this channel membership is translating into the real world. A lot of folks meeting up and going games together. I think there was folks met up with Tom down in Florida, and I've been hearing stories of various different ultras meeting up at games across the country. So we absolutely love that stuff. And thanks for visiting, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Shout out to all the ultras hanging out, getting together, doing and wearing the shirt, which is amazing. Like, I can't tell you how cool it is to see the Morning Kick Around jersey in so many places. I do think it's really bad that Tom, who goes everywhere, didn't get his shirt to rep Morning Kick Around on the road. They were really missing out on some free advertising from our guy Tom the Soccer Zombie, but I will get him out a new shirt hopefully very soon. Just got to get that run together. So yeah, Tom, I got you. It's coming.
Yeah, great segue to mention that tomorrow is the cutoff date for the second run of shirts of these Morning Kick Around kits, which you saw beautifully modeled by Ryan there in the picture, and you see the link on screen. Look up Morning Kick Around on Fourth Wall. It's morning-kickaround-shop.fourthwall.com. Get your orders in by tomorrow is the cutoff date. So you have today or tomorrow, and then we're going to send the order off to Mark at Bastion and to get that second run of shirts going. And now that we had that first one under our belt, we got our processes kind of lined up. The turnaround time should be much quicker than the first time around.
I'm going to very quickly, and I don't know if any of our ultras who struggle with Discord are here today, but if you are one of those people who is a little bit overwhelmed by Discord, I will again post a guide on how to do Discord. It's very simple, guys. It's basically a chat app. You can do it on a browser. You don't have to download anything. You can log in through discord.com. Once you open it, you'll be able to find, I'll send you the link. The link is posted on the YouTube channel for anybody who hasn't joined up yet. But I'm also going to post the guide to join up because I want everybody to be part of the community in all the ways the community exists. And that is one of the ways. That is a great way to interact and to connect and meet up with people when they're in your neighborhood, when they're in your area. Callan says he doesn't like the Discord. I mean, again, I know it's overwhelming. It's probably not going to be for everybody, but I would encourage everybody to at least give it a shot. Right?
I would say if it bothers you, if you get alerts, find a way to turn off the notifications, because sometimes people get into a conversation. So it's, message. So turning off the notifications might be the way to go for you if it is getting under your skin. But it is a delight to, open it up, and there's conversations going on from folks that are starting their own teams. Shout out to Andrew, who suggested that idea in the first place. Local stuff, so I can nerd out with my USL2 cronies. And then we have MLS for MLS fans. We got USL thread. We got national team thread. And then a general thread to talk about, pretty much anything that you'd like. So great conversation. Like robust people new to the game, all the way to people who spent decades in various levels within the game as well. So there's experience and knowledge there, as well as new exuberance as well. So it's a really good mix of people at this point. And thank you for everyone for supporting the show, becoming an MK Ultra and becoming an Ultra at that monthly giving level. So that should be mentioned that accepting a gift just gets you 1 month. And so if you become a reoccurring member, that's really what is keeping the show going. That's the main support apparatus for us here on the show. Some more MK Ultras, the better the conversations will be, and the more support shown here for us here on the show. But that about does it for me. You got anything else before we step out for the week?
No, I feel like we're always something we're not getting to, something we're missing, something we should be covering. But I think that's it. Again, encourage everybody who hasn't bought, hasn't gotten their MK Ultra jersey to go and do that on the fourth wall, so we can get that run together. We're going to be sending off the number and the jersey sizes and everything to our guy Mark very soon. So your deadline for the next run is tomorrow. Let's go. You said it was tomorrow, right? The 23rd?
23rd.
Tomorrow. Get it in. Get your jersey done so that you can be repping like Ryan out in Oakland County and everybody else across the country wearing the MK Ultra. It is beautiful. It is very, very nice. It feels like a real team jersey. It really does. And I hope people connect with it.
We had a question, having a great holiday weekend. Thank you for all the well wishes, but John Stark in the Northeast is assuming no Memorial Day show. I know it's going to be tight on my end. I don't think I can swing it.
Yeah, I
and
think
you
we're
have to stuff
gonna
envelopes, right? You're going to be stuffing jerseys.
I might be doing other stuff. I probably have to work on the radio because I don't really take off those holidays on the radio, but I will otherwise be engaged with birthday parties for kids and things like that. So yeah, Monday is a holiday for Morning Kick Around.
Yeah, we'll see you guys Wednesday, and we'll try to get some of our segments up and posted for you as well. But everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your soccer.